Welcome, travelers, everybody. We are back. Another week of the Fiona and Cake mini-series. I'm guessing it seems like there's going to be another season, which I'm very excited for.
Yeah.
I, as always, am one of your co-hosts, Russell. We are so excited to get into episode 8. And with me, as always, is, I know y'all know him as DJ Nettie P. I got to reveal something in case you don't know. Maybe we've revealed this in the past. With me, this recording, and maybe always, depending on how you look at it, is Jerry. Jerry is with me this recording.
Yes,
hello, Jerry.
It is me, Jerry. If you guys didn't know, my lovelies and my sexies out there, my full name is Jerry Ned Pruitt III. So
yes,
if you follow me on Instagram, you know that already. But
funny enough, so is the Lich. The Lich's real name is also Jerry Ned.
Apparently
Pruitt III.
so. Apparently, the Lich's name is Jerry, according to BMO in this episode.
Hey, just like BMO, I'm just goosing y'all. I'm goosing. It's Ned. DJ Nettie P is with me as always.
Yeah, that's what the J in DJ stands for, right? This is I don't know what the D stands for.
What's the D stand for?
Dr. Jerry Ned Pruitt. That's my father.
You know, Doctor. Yeah, well, your father is actually, yes. So
it is. So he is then maybe the original DJ Nettie P.
Maybe so. Well, welcome. This is I'm super pumped to talk about this episode. Jerry is phenomenal. I've got a little group chat going with 2 friends here in Nashville, and they were just like, just wait till you get the Jerry. Wait till you get the Jerry. It's so good. And I didn't know what to expect. My emotions were I was really sad at one moment, and we'll get into that. I was pumped and freaking out at another moment. And I feel like this episode for me, as someone who's getting into Adventure Time for the first time, I could not believe the ride. Well, this miniseries, but this episode has taken me on. It was just a cruise, and then all of a sudden, I was like, "Holy crap! This might be one of my favorite episodes of Adventure Time ever." So I'm very excited for this.
Well, are we talking about a specific storyline, or just like because it pretty much does not let you take an emotional break the whole episode? Is that kind of like why you're saying like you like it so much?
Well, there are little breaks, right? I think the breaks, and maybe what we talk about first, is kind of the more dull side of this, because like the last episode, we had, the counterpart, the B or the C story was we're talking about Marshall Lee, and we were talking about what is his name? Princess Bubblegum, Gary. We were talking about Gary, and so this kind of C plot that we get this episode is Scarab, and it's what's happening in the Scarab, and those moments are used to kind of like ease you back, let you breathe for a moment, and chill out. And we can maybe start talking about Scarab, but the rest of it, as we'll get into, I just felt like it built really well. I really thought this was going to be holy crap, and I have not seen the ending of Adventure Time yet, because in the podcast we are through season 5, or at the beginning of season 5. There is a story of Betty and Ice King Simon, who I've wanted to know so much more about this entire time, and finally all this was revealed to me. Ned, did you know all of this already? Did you know their background?
No, so you don't really know any bit of story except for they were both like scientific researchers. She was equally as scientific as he was. So this aspect of the story of like, how did this come to be? In my, I guess, mind canon, I always thought that she was like a co-researcher with him. So this kind of kicking off, and I noticed at the beginning of the episode, she calls him like Dr. Petrikov. And so I was like, okay, so we're not in the realm of them going on this adventure in the jungle with them already being in a relationship, which I thought was cool. That means like, even from the get-go, I was like, okay, we're going to get the whole story of how he went from Dr. Petrikov to Betty to Simon, which I think is a really well-told story. And man, I could tell the song at the end too, like their song that's together. My wife was in the other room when I was watching this, and she just like screams out, she's like, "Are you crying over there?" And I was like, "No, I'm not crying. I'm not crying." It's just
it was cute. Oh my gosh. I was like, what a romantic moment. It kind of weirdly reminded me, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking about this right now. For whatever reason, it really reminded me of the moment in, is it A Very Goofy Movie, where Goofy and his librarian girlfriend,
they have that whole like montage,
and he walks, or maybe she does, walks
no he
her
walks
hands.
his hands up her arm, and like she does it
the
back
mood
to
rings,
him.
their mood rings like touch or something and start to glow. It's a very similar vibe. If you've ever seen that.
And they're at a college too, so it's got like a little similar vibe. They're both at
the bus stop, which might be the case as well in the Goofy movie. Did they just rip off A Very Goofy Movie? They may have just ripped off A Very Goofy movie.
Extremely goofy movie.
Extremely, yes. Oh, dude, when you're a kid and you're watching that crap, and it's like they're skateboarding and they're in college and all these awesome things. I
think I watched that this year too. I watched both of those movies this year. It's just instant classics too. But we don't tangent.
No, we don't tangent. So the story though, and why I think a reason why I loved it so much, I thought it was so good. It was a device. It was a device to inform the viewer something that they probably, and what I was getting at, like they probably really wanted to know. I'm surprised you're not more excited about this, but they use it to inform the viewer of this incredible background while also letting Fiona like soothing her to help her get through this episode. It's used both, and I think that's like the best case scenario. If you can inform your viewer and also like get to something that matters for other characters in the episode, like have that dual meaning. I thought it was done so well. I'm really surprised you weren't more in love with this episode, or at least that part of this episode.
I liked it. I thought it was great, and I've got like a lot of deep thoughts about it too. But I mean, your point to it being used as the story aspect is what I really liked, because Fiona's since we left the Winter Kings universe, I guess really there's only been like 2 episodes. She's been kind of crumbling into becoming a little bit more depressed, becoming like, okay, like I want to get back to my universe, but she is starting to realize, and this is, I guess, part of just like growing up, that her actions have consequences, and that Simon, although it is a selfless act of him to be like, I'm going to become the Ice King so that you can get back to your universe, he almost like doesn't want it. And I think she's realizing that everything's her fault, that she quote unquote can't do anything right. And Simon's story is what kind of is helping her like cope through a hard time. So I love that, just in the sense that like when we were kids and like when we were like, I don't know, trying to go to bed when we were scared, like parents would tell you a story. Escapism and through storytelling is a very cathartic experience, but not an unhealthy form of escapism.
I do wonder, like at the beginning of this episode when they're getting to the deserted Ooh, right? And Simon expresses to her, and maybe this played into setting up, okay, we're going to use this story to help her find some sort of internal resolve, where he's expressing that like, hey, even your best intentions, like best intended actions even, can have negative effects on those that you're trying to protect, right? So he mentions that like Marceline, right? And that still hurt her in the long run. And so maybe she's seeing that a little bit. This episode plays into like Cake and Fiona's immediate, like they're kind of butting heads a bit, because the last episode Cake was stopped from getting the Vampire King's crown.
Fiona,
now they're stuck in this world.
Constantly in the last episode, Fiona was keeping Cake from being her cakiest Cake. And that was a big thing that kept frustrating Cake. And it's probably a little bit Fiona internalizing, like, is Cake better off without me? Which we know is not the case. And Finn and Jake deal with some of that through the show, you know, like in Dungeon, when they were like, I can do this adventure better than you can. Let's go on our separate paths, and like who can do the dungeon better. And that, I don't think Fiona's quite seen how like they can complement each other. I don't think Cake's seen that either, because Cake's very holding Fiona at arm's distance. Well, I mean, I would be too. I also agree with Cake, where like you've been given a voice, you've been given sentience, and you've been given stretchy powers, which is like a bonus on top of all of that.
So she's totally thriving. I think her desire to stay in this world and kind of, we talked about these things last episode some, where like her desires are selfish, and at the same time Fiona's made all these mistakes, is making her world magical a mistake for everybody in that world, because it's a decision for them that they don't get to decide for themselves, but obviously Cake wants it. But during this episode, Fiona is constantly treating Cake a little bit like a house cat, and she just was her house cat. So I get that. Like, she grabbed her to protect her from BMO, and she didn't, like, obviously Kate doesn't need that. Kate just fought vampires and saved the day, turned into a giant tank for Princess Bubblegum. Like, she doesn't need you to protect her from something underneath the couch.
And Fiona needs to get out of her own head about that. Is like, she keeps protecting Cake as if it was the house cat, because if Cake gets hurt, Fiona is going to internalize that and say, this was my fault. This is my fault that Cake got hurt. This is my fault. We're in this situation. When at this point along, it's not Fiona's fault. Like, if Cake wants to go off and like fight vampire demons and Cake dies, like, Fiona's going to go, oh, that was so my fault, and all this is going on. No, this is Cake's choice. Like, Cake is gaining the independence to make her own choices for the first time ever, essentially ever, quote unquote. Like, and Cake's like, dude, you can't take that away from me. And so it's Fiona doing her internal battle with Cake going, I'm this whole new person, pretty much. And they're butting heads over it for sure. And nothing's necessarily quite resolved. I think even by the end of this episode, when they're fighting over the crown, and like, Fiona doesn't, like, again, it's essentially like, who takes the fall for what I want? Is it Simon that goes crazy, becomes the Ice King again, so we can have our magical world? And that bodes well for Cake. But no matter what, like, even if Fiona goes back into her universe and she knows that she's living in the Ice King's crazy head, she's never going to be happy. And I think that that's why she finds the crown and hides it. And she's like, I got to find a different solution, because it's not, what does she say? Nobody should die being who they, or everybody dies, but everybody dies who they want to be, being who they are. I thought that was like kind of really a cool, deep concept there.
Yeah, I get it. I think Fiona goes through a real arc in this episode, which is another reason why I like it. I think she's finally showing her inner Finn. She's finally accepting her actions. And she does this, my thought was, with the crown, right? Obviously, she's very selflessly, in my mind, doesn't want to give Simon the crown, because she saw in those videotapes the craziness. What
finally sees the Ice King for who he was. Yeah,
it wasn't a good life, and he's willing to do that for her, but she is so selfish. Previously, so selfishly trying to make that occur, and so it was. Yeah, I mean, it was like her kind of realizing, maybe this isn't best for Simon. Maybe we don't need to do this. If there's a way to succeed or move on from this world without Simon getting the crown, maybe we can find another solution. Like, honestly, if we're just being real, Cake being a magical cat now, why would she doesn't need to go back to her universe. Just stay in, Ooh Prime, like, live your life, live your best life. Well, I mean, all you know is Fiona, you're a house cat. Anyways.
Well, and some of this has to be stemmed from now, like, universe jumping, that, Fiona and Cake's universe, that's where all their friends are. I wouldn't even necessarily say family, because I don't know if really Fiona and Cake have family in this universe. They want to save their friends in that universe. But, like, again, if there's any bit of self-awareness, whether it goes back to normal, like whether it's just normal Fiona and Cake world, or whether it's magical Fiona and Cake world, if Fiona's self-aware that anything else is out there, it's going to be really hard to settle in that world. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I could see very much, like, almost Fiona holding out, being like, I either just don't want resolve in this yet until I find a better solution. And maybe the show ends with, like, again, Fiona is going to be some sort of, like, interdimensional, either cosmic being or interdimensional adventurer that, like, she protects all universes. She doesn't just protect one, like, or just her own. I don't know. That's maybe mine, theoretically speaking, of this episode.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so curious where we're going this next episode. I mean, just looking at the whatever the image, right, when you're about to watch it on HBO Max, it's definitely not the same animation, which really is kind of confusing me where we're going.
It reminds me a little bit of the, we'll talk about that next week, but of the BMO 8-bit episode a little bit.
Yeah. I haven't seen, we haven't watched the next episode yet. So clearly like our thoughts this episode are going to be entirely based off of what we know from Jerry and Pryor. But I guess my theoretically speaking is that like we're finally going to get to see a magical Fiona and Cake world. He does not put the crown on at the end there. He falls into the hole with Scarab. And then of course you see Golb. I don't know.
Yeah, you see Golb at the end.
Golb in the eye of the Lich, which I have thoughts even like in my opinion, and I thought, we were talking about who's going to be the main antagonist. Is the Lich the main antagonist now? I know he's in this world.
I think we've flipped it we flipped the script here that the Lich is now the main antagonist because the Lich is in this world. And so we're getting right into the end of this episode already.
I know, dude. We're just hopping into it.
No, it's good. It's good. As long as like I said, it's just, we're flowing where we get to that point. The Lich in this world has achieved what he wanted to achieve.
Yes.
Pretty much across the universe, but this world, he obviously just ends all life in this world, this universe alone. So also, did you see that I noticed that when they were watching the Ice King tapes, the last tape, the very last clip, you see him turn to a skeleton, which was the moment that apparently the Lich, but the Lich is, that's why Simon says he's depressed. He's done his duty and now he's just sitting away rotting in a cave. I guess just semi-depressed or plotting or planning or anything like that. But the end scene here is so important because he uses the Lich's, magical battery power to be able to reopen his portal, which is, I guess he's pretty confident that that's what his magic spell does now. But as soon as he sees Simon tied to the crown and Scarab, who's about to slice Simon up with a magic sword, in his realm, he reverses the magic, shocks them both, and opens up a red portal, and then has his
talking about
crazy,
Gold, not the Lich, right?
Well, the Lich, I think, opens up this portal. Remember how Simon's original goal was to open up a portal because Betty was essentially digested, eaten by Golb. So,
well, here's my thought. I disagree, but I think this isn't the Lich's actions. I think the Lich is, as we come upon Lich, and let's at least
he is the last scholar of Golb. So
last scholar of Golb.
Yes,
which he probably wants to meet Golb too, right? Obviously. So he says, "Ice Wizard." So you have risen again, which is interesting. So he's taking acknowledgement, but then he kind of subdues his power a little bit, or goes back to being completely like asleep or whatever. And Simon concludes that they're not in danger. Like maybe the Lich is depressed, whatever. Here's the thing. The Lich got his wish. If we go back to season 5, episode 1, or was it 2? I can't remember when it happens. You have the Lich wishing that life ceased to exist on this planet. And so if we can make the conclusion that the Farm World wish created Farm World, then we could probably also conclude that there was a dual split wish where one world had the Lich making the wish come true and everyone dying, and then the other wish, or the other world is normal.
Almost. There's an episode coming up. We've talked about it a little bit, but essentially, the Lich, I'm trying to think of how it gets dismembered, and his body dismemberment gets thrown into a portal where you see it like spread across a bunch of different universes. So that's it's weird. I don't know how to like phrase it without giving you exactly what happens, but yeah.
Well, without having too much context, I don't think that even plays into what I'm saying. Like, I think there's a split of worlds. You have a Lich now in a world where everyone ceased to exist, which is this deserted or completely.
Oh, so you think that this is the world where the Lich, the first Lich's wish came true?
Yes, this is that. Okay. This is what that is, and so
because he is in Billy's body, so that does make sense. Yeah,
and that's why when you're getting the Ice King's videotapes and you're watching that, you have the very last moment of the videotapes, you see a frame. I think it's just like 1 or 2 frames of the skeleton, which is the moment when, and BMO says earlier in this episode, BMO's like, look, everybody all of a sudden everybody was skeletons. And then Jerry came, and he's super nonchalant about it. And that's what this is. This is the world where the wish came true and the Lich is sitting there. Therefore, he's killed all life. Now he has nothing to do. When they walk into his chamber, this is him being like, holy crap, there's more people. Like my wish isn't truly true or whatever. I have to get rid of these people. So you see his eyes start to glow as events occur around him, as Scarab comes back, as the ice wizard is doing his chant to make the portal come out of his head, right? So all of a sudden, now Jerry, the Lich, is paying attention. He's curious what's going on. My thought is that portal that drops, that hole that drops them down is red, is Golb. You see Golb appear in the Lich's eyes. I think Golb took over the Lich's body or essence in that moment in order to take them to Golb as opposed to have the Lich do whatever. But I think the Lich is going to see this and somehow he's going to go after them or go through the portal with them to Golb. So I think this is Golb's doing as opposed to the Lich's doing. And the Lich now is reinvigorated and he's like, holy crap. Instead of just taking out life on this planet, you know what I need to do? I need to take out life everywhere. I got to take out life in the entire multiverse.
Yeah, I think, and I think that that's why he takes advantage of that moment. One, because Scarab has the like crazy crystal. Simon has the crown. So he's like, okay, I'm getting all these like crazy interdimensional magic like items. And I think he's like, this is my opportunity. I think it's still the Lich doing it because he's just a servant of Golb. And like maybe, again, I think Golb's ultimate end is to destroy all life in the universe. And that's why the Lich is...
Oh, so Golb is also trying to do that?
Yeah, Golb's also evil. Like,
what?
Golb is, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, that's
again, no wonder he's a scholar of Golb. That makes so much sense.
It's more of like he's a servant to like whatever. Again, the Lich is one of like think the monsters that existed in our canon, this little canon we're creating in this podcast. The Lich is one of the monsters that existed at the beginning of time, but he's not necessarily one of these like celestial beings like Golb, like Scarab, like Prismo, like Orbo or anything like that. So the Lich, in order to serve Golb, being like, hey, I am destroying life across all these universes, and now we've got this cosmic being, and now I've got an ice crown that obviously the jewels can power interuniversal travel. And so this is maybe the Lich sees this as his opportunity to be like, I can do this, and now I can do this across all universes. And that's why he just like, he's like, Golb portal, boom, let's suck them, let's go serve Golb.
So you think Golb was just like watching? That's why you see Golb. But it's just so fascinating to me that the color of the portal was not the Lich's green. It was this red.
I think it's going into whatever dimension or cosmic realm that Golb is in. That's why I think that.
Okay. So I guess this does kind of completely negate the fact that we were like, oh, maybe the ultimate boss of Scarab was Golb. I
think that negates that one for sure.
Yeah. Well, tell me about who is Scarab's boss. We get to meet the freaking cool guy boss of Scarab this episode. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Orbo.
I think it's funny that now that we're, first of all, Scarab, we learned from the last episode, gets sucked into essentially a cosmic DMV where he's just like chilling in a waiting room, and you see all these other beings, and there's a weird interdimensional clock, and he's just waiting to see his boss. So I think that it is funny that there is a hierarchical tree of command amongst cosmic beings.
Yeah.
And that Orbo, all these beings want to be chill. And I mean, I could probably see that if you're like this weird in like time doesn't matter, space doesn't matter, cosmic being, it could lend you to either be like Scarab, where you just got a tight butthole all the time, or it could lend you to be like Prismo and Orbo, where it's just like, hey, like we got it under control, and they kind of end up being chill dudes.
Yeah, Prismo's a cool guy. They can't do anything wrong.
He's a cool dude.
He's not creating his own multiverse or universe for the sake of like his own doing. Like, he's too cool, right? He would never do that. Just be cool with Scorbo. Like, you're too stuck up, and I'm Mr. Cool Guy. And for whatever reason, when like what you're saying, like we're a frat, like we're just all about
it puts
who can
off
hang.
like frats,
that's what it is.
Frat vibes, and even some of the other cosmic beings we see when they zap to kind of like I don't know, the purple crystal palace, whatever, probably Orbo's house,
like
I
court
assume,
or something.
Yeah, Orbo's court. Those other guys again gets my tops of the episode when Scarab goes on his big rant. Talks about, Prismo creates the universe. Let me finish my job. He kind of goes on this monologue, and the little multi-faced turtle person just gives one like clap. I thought that was so funny.
Oh,
but that gets my tops of the episode.
Dude, I think, in my opinion, I mean, Orbo is the most punchable character in this episode easily. Like
punchable, okay.
Yeah, most punchable. I mean, dude, here's the thing. If you're in high school and you got a summer job or you got a job after school or something like that, Orbo's the boss you want. Orbo's the boss that's just like all about having a good time. Like, don't worry about it, man. You messed up. It's okay. Like, you're learning. I'm just here, probably smoking something illegal. Like, it's all good. Like, that's how high school boss.
He's got the pit boss sunglasses on.
Yeah.
Cool guy,
totally.
Australian accent.
Now, you graduate from college, right? Or you go and get a master's degree or whatever, or you're in even if you didn't go to college, you're in your career or you're pursuing your dreams. That's not the boss you want. The boss you want is someone who's going to be professional, who's going to recognize your hard work. You don't need to be Scarab, but Orbo is too chill, and that is not the boss that's going to help you get to the top, to help you rise up above everyone else in your field. And so Orbo is my most punchable character in this episode.
I got you. I didn't dislike him. I feel like if we see much more negligence from him, I will dislike him a little bit more. But all we've seen is that, again, Prismo knows Scarab from the past. Like, he's like, oh, when we used to all call you like Scrabby. So all these guys, again, probably like quote unquote came up with each other, whatever time that means. I don't know. And that like Scarab was obviously like the uncool guy of everybody. So
definitely. But Orbo just threatens him, just like, I'm going to remove your legs, dude. Like, you're not being chill. Get the F out of here. Like, your legs are coming off. And Prismo's cool. Prismo's hanging out. We're good with Prismo. And I guess the actual boss, the phone comes down, is who intercedes.
And that's who I still have. I think because we got introduced to Orbo, they might have to be introducing another character. I don't know this.
The true boss?
The true boss. It would be hilarious if it was some version of Jake. Because the only thing I could think about is because the phone is yellow and it drops down as if it was stretchy. So,
what if it's just, I mean, I have no context for the later seasons of Adventure Time, but what if it's Finn and Jake and they're just chilling up in some like upper dimension?
Yeah, it would be a stretch, because then it would be like, is this our prime Finn and Jake? I think we would be making too many loose ends that we couldn't tie up.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because we got a really good like resolve with them through the Distant Lands HBO series. We got a really good resolve with kind of their reincarnation story type thing. So it would be a stretch, but like something about the ultimate boss being kind of like an interdimensional cosmic Jake, possibly, which would be kind of funny, in my opinion. A really good way. It would be a way that they could do it to be like, that's why there's a stretchy Jake dog in every universe,
Yeah. Man, we kind of passed through this. I just want to mention my tops of the episode. It's got to be the Lich reveal. That moment was so freaking cool, because you walk past Jerry's house, and of course, this whole world's deserted. And Bemo's just like, oh yeah, that's where Jerry lives. Like, he's super cool. He's tall. He's got good jokes.
He's got good jokes.
Don't even worry about it. And he keeps mentioning Jerry. Like, Bemo just doesn't even know what's going on in this episode. But when you go back, when they finally, Cake is like, hey, like, she was feeling Bemo. Like, she is like, Bemo's awesome. Which
she's feeling Bemo I get for sure.
Like, Bemo is that awesome. But she goes, hey, like, we should tell Jerry. Like, clearly Jerry meant a lot to Bemo. Jerry has the right to know what's going on. And when they freaking go down those steps and you see some skeletons and it gets a little creepy, and then out of nowhere, it's the freaking Lich, because Simon's freaking out. and then the lich says cease, and then everything goes black.
Yeah,
dude,
that's the ultimate lich moment. Yeah.
Oh man, that was so good.
The one word lich, like power over them, is such like an epic moment. But I think I was a little less shocked by it. If I had just binged this show, if I just like watched it through, probably more mind blown, but more because we're breaking each episode down. And I was like, he's coming back. He's coming back. We've introduced it. We've had too many like cameos of like little liches in other universes that he's creeping somewhere, and this got to come back into play at some point. So I was a little less shocked. I was kind of like ready for this to happen because, again, in this universe, all we see is Wasteland and BMO. And we realize, you know, BMO even he's like my hero heart. And technically BMO is like not quote unquote life. So also we could weirdly assume that possibly
his bravest little heart,
his bravest little hero
is
heart.
that what you're talking about? His bravest little
but
hero
it's funny
heart?
We could probably obviously assume that the other Moes exist somewhere in this universe if BMO's alive. But also BMO has the purest of like the Moes heart. We'll get into that episode later.
Yeah.
And that's probably what BMO is.
He's got to be your lovely. He's got to be your lovely.
BMO's obviously your lovely. There's no question. There's no question.
Oh my gosh. I loved him from moment one. BMO's just goosing everybody, right? Yeah. That moment when he's sitting there and he's like, holy crap, I got an idea. Like, your story about love is so sweet. Like, the power of love is so powerful, I think is what BMO says. We can jumpstart the remote with my heart. And did you think, like, what was your reaction to that? Because I freaking paused the episode and went, what the,
Well, the burial scene gave me like super Dobby vibes from Harry Potter when they buried Dobby in Harry Potter. And it's just like sad. Like,
but could you believe they actually killed BMO? Like,
in this universe, yeah. I'm not surprised. So in Distant Lands, there is a very similar scene to where BMO, in a different way, but like sacrifices herself to save someone else, and that BMO is ultimately the most selfless character in all of Adventure Time. Literally, it's just like, I want to go on adventures, and if I can do something helpful for people that deserve it, I will do it. And BMO is the ultimate character of like wonderful selflessness. And so the fact that BMO does this is not surprising to me. Now the fact that I think they are juxtaposing that.
To kill him?
Well, they're juxtaposing it, I think, to one of the last big BMO stories they ever did, which was BMO sacrifices herself to save her friend and is able to be like put back together, essentially. And then they're doing this to be like, look, that doesn't play out this way in every universe, you know? So I was sad, but not shocked, I should say.
I think what bothered me, I mean, I had no idea it was coming. That totally was just the wildest thing to me. The regret that BMO has on the last moment, because he's so happy, and then all of a sudden his face stops smiling, he goes, whoops, and then he explodes. And it's just so much sadder that there was a little bit of regret in BMO's mind when that occurred. I mean, truly the bravest little heart, and Kate ends up touching him and turning him into, because as we know, like I guess because clock. They don't, because that whole thing about them not supposed to be here, maybe, or whatever their universe position on
was that little like
curve, whatever
interdimensional, like turn back to normal, which means there could be some redemption arc for this universe's BMO.
Oh man, it just freaking killed me, and that's why I was like, we got to start recording our reactions sometimes, because my reaction to that moment was freaking wild. I did not expect to feel that much for BMO. So, and it almost makes me sad knowing that he does something like that again later. We'll see. We'll get there.
Yeah, the Distant Lands one is a very fun. It's really, really weird for a while, and then the ending moment is kind of like, okay, you get BMO, like you understand BMO's characteristic, like totally in the universe that BMO's supposed to live in. So, all that being said, that was I'd say that was sadder of the moments in the episode, but we do get. I wouldn't say sad, because we have broken down, I think a huge part of this episode in general is just like relationships in general, with friends, with romances. And one, that's beautiful, because I think that's just like what's Adventure Time's all about. we discuss the difficulty of the friendship, either, but between Fiona and Cake, either in a you're my pet mentality or you're my best friend and I don't want you to get hurt mentality. But obviously, the flip side of the story is Simon and Betty, which we do need to talk about too. So that's like,
yeah.
But this, we were talking before the podcast, and Russell was like, "Did you not think this was the craziest thing between Simon and Betty?" And I'm like, I don't think it's crazy, but it's a really, really great story, which I think either when we were possibly talking, I think in episode 1 or 2 of this Fiona and Cake series, I was like, man, what was their relationship like if he's so fucking codependent on her? Was it unhealthy? How did it start? Was Betty as into him as he was into her? And so I think this is a beautiful way to bring that all together.
Yeah.
And I'll start with my high level, and I want to hear kind of like if your thoughts straight along this same kind of like deep thought line is that she is kind of like obsessed with him, kind of like fan-based obsessed with him.
Yeah, and initially there's admiration for sure.
There's admiration. Like, she's the one that comes up to him after the lecture. He's like, I'm going on this thing. It'd be so great to have you. And she's like, I'll go with you. She just immediately drops everything, drops her Australia trip, goes with him.
Yeah.
She not shreds down, but like opens up a whole new aspect of him. Even this old Simon, you could see, was so business oriented. He was so methodical, so only focused on work, only focused on being safe, that she brings out another side of him, of something that is adventurous. And it made me think, like, is this why Ice King is so drawn to Finn? Also, in our universe, that Finn's adventurous, Finn's fun, Finn doesn't do things by the book, and that his core is like really drawn to Finn as a friend because he needs somebody around him to be his best self, to be his most adventurous self. That he's really methodical and thought out and planning.
Takes his time. Yeah,
takes his time. That's one aspect of it, and the second aspect of, again, this is just as I'm ranting because I got to get it all out on paper, and then I want to hear your reaction. I'm not going to just rant over you. Don't worry. Is that when Betty basically puts herself out there for him? She's like, I'm all about him. I'm all about this relationship. I'm going to leave this note for you, professing my love, basically. But then she still gives him the room to be like, look, if the best thing for you is to just keep going with your work, to find the Enchiridion, then do it. She wants the best for Simon. And she's like, I'm going to go off and do my thing. I wish that I could be with you. I wish I could do these adventures with you. But if that's not part of your goal, that's okay with me. And as long as you're happy. And I think that is the ultimate thing of why I love this aspect of their relationship, is that he doesn't give up anything for her, but he realizes that's what true love is somebody going, look, I could be selfish. I could be throwing myself at you. I could be forcing myself into your life, but I'm only going to do it if you want me to be a part of your life. And if you don't, then, and that makes you happy, then I'm willing to make that sacrifice for you. I loved that side of Betty. So yeah, she definitely gets a lot more redemption than I was giving her credit for when we started the show off. So that's my 5-minute rant, and I would love to hear.
I mean, you touched everything. I don't know.
I had to hit it all, because if I didn't, that was what I was. That was what hit me the deepest in this episode, was the fact that she was shook hands with him. She gave him googly eyes, and then he was like, and she was like, "No, this is your moment, man. Like, you found the Enchiridion. This is your like life's work." And I'm happy to be a part of it, but I'm going to go off and do my own thing. Let me know if you want me to be a part of any other adventures. So, and he does it, and it eliminates the notion that I thought he was codependent on her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Wow.
But okay. What was your deep thought? And maybe I hit on too much. Maybe I hit on everything you were saying.
Yeah. I mean, I had responses for many things, but I don't know exactly where they go from there. You nailed it. I mean, clearly, yeah, I mean, she definitely balances him out, or they balance each other out. She is slowed down by him. He is sped up by her in great ways. She is creative and crazy and wants to take her socks off and just walk through the river instead of trying to go slowly on these rocks that are slippery. Why would you do that? It's so much faster and easier like this, and you don't end up falling into the river. She wants to run through the rocks that have snakes in them because that's what she was taught or whatever, and it's goofy and it's fun and it's loud. And he thinks he should take his time with the rod and poke around and stuff. Mm-hmm. And she gives him, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to respond. She gives him a moment at the end of this episode at the bus stop, and kind of, it's unintentional. It probably, I mean, purely luck that he comes across the note in the book that she was reading that was meant for him. And then he goes to the roommate. The roommate points
when
her
they first
to the
met.
bus stop.
Remember, they reached for the same book when they first met, and then he let her check it out. So he went back to check it out. So it was like semi luck, yeah.
But it's definitely luck that it all. What I'm saying is the chances of him coming up and she's at the bus stop waiting, a very romantically fake lucky moment, right? Gorgeous, incredible story. We all have romantic, crazy love stories just like that, but. I really dig it. I thought it was incredible. I thought what I was trying to get at is the fact that he is this, you know him, as we keep ranting and saying, and you know her, and she's at the bus stop, and then he has to learn from all the moments that he had with her throughout this entire episode and throughout all of their adventure together that sometimes you can't wait. Sometimes you can't hesitate. Sometimes you have to say what you mean and what you want, and you have to just go for it. And that's what he does, because the bus shows up and he's still trying to think through. He's like, oh my gosh, it was such a sweet note. Like, I can't believe you said that. Like, what
he was
risk.
trying to rationalize it. Yeah. He was trying to make some sort of oh yeah, I came here. He's not wearing his heart on his sleeve. He's like, oh yeah, you need to be careful how much information you put on random notes to strangers.
He's overthinking it, and he needs to rush and needs to say his feelings, because that's what she's done. She's put herself out there, and fortunately or unfortunately, the bus shows up and it forces him to do that. But I think he would never have done that if it wasn't for the fact that he learned from her, or he feels from her that comfortable with making a decision like that. And
she was the one that she was the one that was doing those risky moves. And that he almost learned from her how to be no, I'm doing what's risky here. And
he's because he's with her.
I want you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I just love that the love aspect of this, and Adventure Time has a lot of different aspects on love, just with what does it mean to love somebody, brotherly love, loving, Finn loving PB at the end of the show. It's not a romantic love. It's just you're my friend love and romantic love. This is one of those ones where they're their love for each other is that they bring out the best in each other. And I love that that's kind of maybe the arc that we're getting out of this. Again, I think Fiona and Cake is weirdly way more about Ice King and Simon than it is about anybody else in the show.
But to be fair, I don't really think we didn't really see how he greatly affected her. She's the one who's making this incredibly selfless decision not to go to Australia. The 6-month trip that she already had planned for Australia, that's not an easy decision to make.
Well,
she just makes it on a whim. That probably took a ton of planning, right?
Yeah, except for the fact that he is probably her muse. Again, she had his book. She was if you said a super fan, or stan, whatever you want to call it, of him, it sounds creepy. However, if his work with all of the stuff that now she's way into is what's her driving force. Again, he is all of his work and his genius and his passion for, I guess, I can't remember the word, but past artifacts is what inspires her to be a scientist. Then that is kind of the give and take of Simon being his most Simon, and how that attributes to who Betty is,
But we don't see how it affects her personality, or how he affects her personality in any way. I mean, she's still kind of doing things on a whim and stuff.
It'd be really hard to make
going
her
on the trip again.
Yeah, it'd be really. We'd have to cram a lot of stuff into 2 episodes to make her a little bit more 3-dimensional. So maybe we need to keep her two-dimensional in that regard. We don't need to see unless there's unless there's a whole episode that's focused on Betty and how she's been doing in Gulp's weird digestive universe, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, wow, what a moment that, he's teaching that class. We actually get to see a lot of the ancient artifacts that we know from the mythological artifacts that we know from the show. The armor of Zeldron from Blood Under the Skin. What is it? Wand of Disbursement from Sons of Mars. The porcelain lamb from Beyond This Earthly Realm. There are a lot of really cool little moments there, and she probably does the best thing that you could possibly do if you're trying to impress somebody. Go in there with some context, and she goes, "Hey, I love your book. I've read it. By the way, this vase, here's something that maybe you didn't think about.
That you missed,
Those signs on it could be pictographs. It could be a clue to help you find Selkie's cave, or cove. I mean, incredible. What a way to impress him." And he kind of jokingly, not really invites her on that trip. And she just, heck yeah, I'm going.
Up on the offer.
Dropping my plans.
Yeah. No, I love
sweet.
it. Again, it makes me very excited. I don't think we're going to get too much extra stuff because what we do know about their relationship already from the show kind of leads up to this moment where they kind of started dating, really. In that point, I don't think they're going to have too much filler of what's going on with Betty and Simon. I think we need to get a lot more loose ends tied with the rest of Betty's story. And what I really, really hope for is Betty's kind of what you don't know is Betty basically becomes Magic Man. Spoiler drop. That the powers that Magic Man loses go to Betty, so she kind of becomes insane for a long time. And that Simon's trying to get his old Betty back. And I really, really hope that that's how this show just wraps up in general.
I can't believe Betty's roommate wasn't either one of our lovely of this episode. I mean, don't you dare make him miss that bus.
Was it her roommate or was it her mom? I couldn't really. I guess it was at university, so
yeah, I thought it was just a roommate being looking out for her best interests and be like, "Hey, don't you dare go up to that bus stop and have a romantic moment." And also, you just hit me with a rock, and I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm being what a trooper.
Shout out to all responsible roommates out there, making sure your roommates don't do irresponsible things.
Yeah. Oh man, I really love this episode. I thought it was great.
I would say, I was telling you before, and we were talking before. I was like, I don't have as much to talk about from just events in this episode, but there was a lot more emotional. I mean, it shows you the capacity that Adventure Time has created this bizarre, crazy, weird universe where all of a sudden you get down to the end of the story and you're so invested in how every character ends up emotionally. And that's what this one is nailing down.
Yeah, I think you were sandbagging a little bit at the beginning of this episode. You definitely had more to say than you put on about their relationship.
I had more deep thoughts, not necessarily episode. I had last episode with the vampires. I was I want to talk about every fucking scene and everything in the background and every character in the background. This one was a little bit more digestible from a universe perspective, but a lot of deep emotional stuff. Again, specifically with what Adventure Time focuses on is relationships. How do we fit into this universe? And pretty much, I love, again, my lesson of this episode is what BMO says. And I think it is wonderfully deep. And I love that it's BMO who delivers the line is one is simply helpless without good help around. And I fucking love that.
That's great.
And I was it's the point of this show is that why do you think there's not just Finn? It's Finn and Jake. Why do you think it's literally doesn't matter who you are? You have to have your counterpart, or else you're helpless. Doesn't matter how good of an adventurer you are. And I forget. Yeah. And I got that with Jackie, and you got that with Allie, and again, go out there and find, guys, don't feel like you're helpless. If you don't have anybody else, hit up our Discord, hit up our Patreon.
No, that's not what this is for. No, again, I will reiterate, you could definitely have adventures on your own that are going to be dope. But
yes, you're going to have great adventures on your own. But
look, Ned loves his wife. We get it.
I do. And she is my Betty to my Simon. So
okay, there you go. Very sweet. Jackie is my I'm trying to think of another relationship.
Magic Man.
She's my magic man to my what on Mars, whatever Mars. I can't remember her name.
No, you said Jackie. Jackie. No, you mean Allie.
Allie. I said Allie, didn't I?
No, you said Jackie. I thought you were trying to compare my wife to somebody in Adventure Time.
I think we're wrong. I don't know. One of us is not understanding. I was trying to say Allie is which I thought I said is my partner to.
Your Margles to your magic.
Whatever.
Man.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Let's get out of here. I really did think you were talking about Jackie in relationship with you, and I was like, who is Jackie to Russell's Adventure Time character? That would be a funny.
That was unintentional if I did. Okay, my lesson is embrace your situation. Betty walking through the river is awesome. And also, as I'm learning, never trust a man named Jerry. That is my other lesson.
He never has.
No, we're good. We're good. Ned, do you have a whatchamacallit, traveler's log for us?
I do have a traveler. We do have a fun traveler's log for today. We have it coming out straight from DJ Stainless Steel, in parentheses, Steel with an E. DJ Stainless Steel says, I'm a college student from Texas A&M, and I've been listening to y'all for a couple of years now. Dude, shout out for that, because we've only been around for a couple of years now. They said, I just finished up with y'all's most recent podcast episode over episode 5 of Fiona and Cake. Russell brought up the point that Barbar, the donkey/mule, might be taxidermied. It does certainly seem like he could be, but if he was his eyes would be the most taxidermied. And they made him look kind of sleepy. Plus Farm World Finn was in a barn type room, so that's probably where he sleeps. And also definitely agree that Farm World Finn is the number one sexy of that episode, no competition. So it was a good traveler's log reiterating the fact that that was a cool little call out to Farm World Finn keeping Barbar in his life, just like that whole Farm World episode where he's just like battling the whole Destiny gang to the teeth to like save Barbar. So thank you, DJ Stainless Steel.
Heck yeah. And also DJ Stainless Steel is in the Discord. If you're curious about the Never Ending Adventure Discord, you got to sign up as Patreon. And I think what we're going to do in a little bit here is probably take the Discord down to all members of the Patreon will have access to it, as opposed to just people who have the lovely or sexiest tier of the Patreon. So, but for now, man, I'm about to release episode 4 of the Patreon, the NEA and Beyond podcast, where me and Ned break down the first episode of Over the Garden Wall, which freaking we loved. It's so good.
Yes,
y'all know it. Too.
It was so hard for us not to go into the whole show. We kind of went into the whole show, but we were like, oh, can we talk about the end of the show? And we were like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we may eventually get through that show on the Patreon, but we've definitely got many more ideas. I mean, I'm thinking the next episode, me and Allie are going to talk about maybe our traditions. That's something that we really love. We've got a couple of traditions we do every year.
Y'all are Halloween tradition people. I've never seen somebody carve pumpkins like you guys.
We are, I think, more than Halloween, we are pumpkin tradition people. We carve pumpkins very seriously in this house, and for whatever reason, it takes us forever to do it. But I feel like they always turn out pretty well. But we've got other traditions like candle nights that we celebrate and non-canonical date nights and stuff. And we'll just go into all of that.
Non-canonical date nights.
Yeah.
I love it.
They're good. They're good. Check out the Patreon for that. We've got Discord. The October newsletter is going to be coming out soon. And also, if you sign up with the sexy or lovely tier, you're also going to get a sticker from the NEA and Beyond podcast logo. Yes. So very excited. We still need to go out.
So I think a lot of our subscribers have already submitted reviews, so already have stickers, but we will send another.
Yeah. Well, but that's another sticker that we need to send out. So we got 2 different stickers now. One for the Patreon and one not for the Patreon. So one for reviews for the normal podcast that we'll be sending out as well. Y'all, thank you so much. I mean, check us out on Instagram at Never Ending Adventure Podcast, TikTok at Never Ending Adventure Cast, Twitter at NEA_podcast. Email us your thoughts, your opinions. Get on the Traveler's Log. We did the Traveler's Log this episode because it was in relation to the Fiona and Cake episodes. The other ones are more for the main series. So we'll get back to that after we finish.
Which I think we do. We have a backlog of those for the main series.
We do.
I think. So
yeah, we've got a couple. NEA.travelerslog@gmail.com. Y'all, freaking awesome. I got an anti-rec this week.
Anti-rec. Ooh, I like your anti-recs though. Like I feel like you being brutal towards things is almost more fun than you liking things.
I think you might like this one. My anti-rec, I'm sorry, Ned, if you do enjoy this. Young Frankenstein is my anti-rec.
No, you know what? I've not watched it, but I know it's Gene Wilder, right?
It is, and I really like him. I think he's a great, very fun actor. I think what I've realized in this movie, at least, it's not that he's like an incredible performer. It's more that he's just so iconic in how he is and who he is and how he sounds. And I think that's a big part of why I like his acting. It is a very dry, very British humor movie, and it is just so dry. And if that's your thing, if repeating jokes over and over again until they're funny is your favorite thing, then by all means, watch Young Frankenstein. If you've never seen it, I think you got to watch it. And again, it's my anti-rec. I didn't super enjoy it. I think if you're, again, kind of like all those nostalgic movies, I'm thinking of the one where the kids go and find treasure, which I'm not a big fan of.
Stand By Me. Yeah.
No, I love Stand By Me.
You're talking about the Goonies.
The Goonies. If you like the Goonies, if you like the one, the Princess Bride, those movies are amazing if you watched them when you were 8 years old. This is an amazing film if you watched it when you were 8 years old. So I didn't, therefore it's not for me. Now, what's your rec?
My rec this week comes off of, first of all, I love the movie Seven. That's not my recommendation this week. My wife had never seen the movie, and we watched it when we were on our trip up to Asheville. She freaking loved it. That's a great movie, and it prompted us to watch the movie Memento, which is Christopher Nolan's second movie he ever came out with. It's a story shown through a movie, and the whole story is told backwards. So like every scene of the movie goes backwards. You like every next scene is the scene that technically happened before the scene before. It is a mind trip. But it definitely puts even like early, I think that movie came out in 2001 was Memento. And it shows you that Christopher Nolan was doing the whole like screenplay and director on a level that like I don't think cinema was like ready for at the time, except for they had like the fun trippiness of like Fight Club before that. It reminds me kind of the Fight Club. It's got a little bit of a Pulp Fiction vibe to it for sure too. Cool. But it's fantastic movie. Go into it blind. We're gonna have to watch it a second time because it's so trippy. But fantastic fun, especially in spooky season when you want some like psychological thriller type movies.
Yeah, right on. Well, dude, that's great. Good freaking episode.
Freaking episode.
I can't wait for the next one. I'm very excited to see where we're going after this.
We've got 2 more, and I was like, I feel like they could just make a whole nother like 20 episodes just stemming off of where we're like based. And I was like, I don't know how they're going to get this all in 2 more episodes. So like,
it's got to be another season. It's got to be another season.
What I'm hoping, man. Hopefully they've seen how this has gotten some traction and they're like, okay, we'll give y'all another one.
Dude, I sure hope so. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us and sticking around this episode. Man, just party forever.
Oh, you know what? I love you guys.